I started making photographs when I was very young. My mother photographed babies and was a baby photographer. And when I was about 14 years old, I was kind of forced into the family business, making photographs of babies. My mother would do home portraits, go into small towns, find out who had babies in the town, drive around, see diapers on the clothesline, and knock on doors and talk your way into the house and do home portraits of the babies. And so when I was a kid, I had to help my mother, so I always had a camera with me. And I never thought of making photographs, only this was just to photograph babies, right? But one day I realized that I could photograph my friends, and I started photographing my friends when I was a teenager, and that's when I started making photographs. And I was always a documentary photographer. And I started photographing my friends when we were teenagers, and I photographed them for the next 10 years, which became my first book, Tulsa. So it became more like visual anthropology. And I laid out the book like a film. I always wanted to be a filmmaker. I always wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to be a filmmaker. But I was a photographer. That was a tool that I had. So I always thought in terms of cinema, it was more than just one photograph, even though the photograph was certainly the most important thing. I always thought in maybe series of photographs. I always thought of showing life and showing real life and showing the way that it really was. And I come out of the 50s when everything was hidden and everything was secret and everything was supposed to be perfect. There wasn't supposed to be kids, I had friends that would come to school with black eyes and their parents beat them up, but it wasn't spoken of. I had friends whose parents were alcoholics and drug addicts, but it wasn't talked about. I knew a girl in junior high school who had 5 brothers, and they were all having sex with her. So maybe her father was too. And everybody in school knew this, but it just wasn't spoken of. So when I started making work, I wanted to say, why can't we show everything? Why can't we, it was almost like making these, doing things that, these forbidden secrets. But I always, and I was a documentary photographer for many, many years and a visual artist, and I was always a storyteller. And I told stories in many ways, and I used photography as much as I could. And at a certain point, I wanted to tell stories like the stories that are in Ken Park, my new film. And these are stories that are all true. They're part of life, but you can't document them. So I knew that the only way to tell these stories would be to make film. I'd had to do drama. So these are the stories that pushed me into making film. This film is a film about families. It's a film about parents and children. Whereas Kids was, of course, about the kids' secret world where adults were not allowed in that world, only me. And Bully was a true crime story about something very extreme that happened in America, where these kids killed their friend who was a bully. Ken Park is about parents and children, and it tells stories which I just spoke of a moment ago. It's interesting when you talk about the sex in the film. I was told that if you showed certain images, that it was automatically pornography, and I said, no, it's not. And they said, well, if you show this and if you show this, it's pornography, and that's the way it's going to be seen. And I said, no, you're wrong. I'm going to show you, because I had this idea for this film that this film is, in the film, the teenagers, the kids, the adults in the film are using the kids in the most inappropriate way to try to fulfill their own emotional emptiness or their needs. And at the end of the day, the kids are getting nothing. The kids get none of their needs filled. And at the end of the film, they've been beat up pretty badly throughout the film, emotionally, physically. And I didn't want this film to end like that, where there was so much despair that it looked like these kids were not going to make it. And I had this idea to have the kids come together in this sex scene as kind of redemption, maybe temporary redemption, but redemption nonetheless, kind of a salvation, kind of uplifting that these kids were going to be okay. And I think it works. Audiences who have seen the film tell me that this works, that it seems right, that it seems like what should happen, and maybe these kids are having sex in maybe the best way and maybe the purest way, and people and they've told me that it's not pornographic, that it's probably the cleanest scene in the movie. Mm. The dirty scenes are when the parents are interacting with the children in ways that are not right. So it was kind of an artist idea to do this. It's one thing to have the idea; it's another thing to be able to pull it off. And I think we were very successful in this. But it is a very important part because when you're a kid, and the whole world is down on you, and you're not getting nothing from the grown-ups. You only have each other. Otherwise, you jump out a window. I mean, we survive because we have our friends, we have our peers, and in this film, it's about connecting. I think. I really like this film a lot. I think it's my best film. When someone kills herself, I think especially somebody young, you never really know why. There may be clues, but I don't think you ever really know exactly why someone is doing something like that. So I wanted to not make it very specific. I didn't want to make it that easy, and that the suicide is because of this or this or this. I wanted it to be a little ambiguous, not, I think the structure, the way that the screenplay is structured is I had like all these stories to tell. I had like 4 films. I could have made four movies, I felt. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to put everything into one film. So I had these stories. And I asked the screenwriter, Harmony Corinna wrote Kids for me. I had given Harmony the kids story. I told him the story and what the film was and what was happening, and he wrote this brilliant screenplay, Kids. So I had all these stories, and this was a while ago, in 1994, and while we were waiting for the funding for Kids, for the money to make Kids, I said, Harmony, I have all these stories. It's like 4 movies. Can you put these together in one screenplay? Can you structure it? And he did this brilliant structure where it's kind of bookended with Ken Park at the beginning and Ken Park at the end, and then these 4 stories as the film. So it's really a brilliant structure. And then I had the screenplay all these years. It took a long time to get financing. I only had the first draft. It took a long time. It took like all these years to get the money to make the film. And I changed a lot of the dialogue. I changed the endings of the film, but the structure of the film stayed the same. I mean, it was really well done.